I am Dr. Cinema. Man, this It movie has really been blowing up, just breaking all sorts of box office records. I mean, it's a pretty great film and one based off, sort of half based off a Stephen King book. I mean, if you really think about it, Stephen King has a lot of adaptations of his work, and there are so many of them, and so loved, so laughed at, so hated that they've become sort of their own thing. I mean, it's been generally accepted in the horror the horror genre that Stephen King being its own subgenre. But should Stephen King adaptations be their very own genre, just like drama or science fiction? Well, I've been thinking about that, and while certainly individual Stephen King adaptations have their own big themes, their own big message, all Stephen King adaptations seem to have a sort of combination of several different traits slash cliches slash tropes slash themes that are a little bit smaller in scale. So that's why they appear in most Stephen King adaptations in some form or another. And I want to briefly just talk about each of these individual traits slash cliche slash themes slash traits. So without so let's begin. One of the things that appears in many adaptations is alcoholism. I mean, Stephen King was an alcoholic, so of course you know this is going to happen. There have been many different characters in Stephen King's adaptations that have at one point or another been alcoholics. You've got the main human character from the Tommyknockers, who was an alcoholic and also a writer, but more on that later. There's also Jack Torrance from The Shining, who was an alcoholic before the events of the film. And there is, of course, the alcohol. Is he alcoholic? I don't think the Beverly's dad from It was an alcoholic, but the point is, in many adaptations, Stephen King usually has a character that is an alcoholic, and that's either showing them that how badly alcohol can either ruin your life or how great one can make oneself after recovering from such a disease. But that's usually something that pops up in multiple adaptations. Another thing that pops up in Stephen King adaptations is religion. You've got the crazy woman from The Mist who says that they need to sacrifice the boy in order to appease the monsters. You've got the religion that drives all the kids from Children of the Corn to kill people. And of course, religion is pretty much in most other Stephen King adaptations, such as Salem's Lot, where there are also vampires and such. And while I really don't think that Stephen King is like spitting on religion in general, I do think they sort of spitting on this sort of organized, crazy, fanatical religion. And I mean, it's fine to do it, but when you do like again and again, like in the same way, it kind of gets repetitive. But the point is that Stephen King's portrayal of like these crazy, fanatical, usually Christian religious people pop up in also many of his adaptations. Maximum Overdrive, that's another one where there's a crazy like Christian fanatic too. Man, they pop up in a lot of weird different adaptations. Another trait is someone is usually a writer. Like there's the guy from the Langoliers who was a mystery writer that sort of help everyone else understand what the heck was going on in their story of time travel. And again, the main character from the Tommyknockers, who was a former alcoholic, is also a writer himself. And of course, one of the children from It grew up to be a pretty famous writer as well. I'm not sure what exactly that means. I mean, these people usually end up being like in a way one of the more heroic people of this story. So I'm trying to think if Stephen King is saying that writers sort of have this like gift in order to see things that aren't usually seen by typical leaders. I'm not really sure what that's about, but that's just something that keeps popping up in multiple adaptations. Another thing that pops up is the unexplained psychic. Usually a child, but sometimes an adult, such as in the Dreamcatcher adaptation. There's a person that has psychic abilities, but it's never really explained how they got these abilities. You've got the girl from Children of the Corn, the girl from the Langoliers, the you've got little Danny from The Shining. It, and like I said, you've got the therapist who's also a psychic from Dreamcatcher film as well. And I'm not sure why these things just keep popping up. I mean, I guess they're sort of a main part of the written story, but they still keep popping up in adaptations as well. It's just an odd thing to notice. There's really nothing analytical about it, I suppose. And of course, another thing that again pops up in many Stephen King adaptations is the supernatural. Now, of course, not all Stephen King adaptations have supernatural stuff in them. I mean, film adaptations such as Stand By Me and Shawshank Redemption certainly don't have supernatural stuff in it. But other adaptations such as Pet Cemetery, Langoliers, Tommy, well, not really Tommy Knockers. I already said it. Pet Cemetery, did I say? Yeah, Pet Cemetery. The Shining, of course, Carrie, Christine. There are many different adaptations that have supernatural stuff in them. Usually, the supernatural has really no explanation of how it happened. They're just really there. And in the written story, I guess they usually connect in one way or another to the Dark Tower, Great Multiverse. It usually probably explained by either the Man in Black or the Crimson King. But when it comes to adaptations, I guess it's really just they're mainly horror stories that it happens in, so they just go. So the supernatural is really there just to be part of the horror. I mean, not. I don't think all horror movies have really defined explanations of why there's a supernatural element in there. But the supernatural is again that pops up in a lot of famous Stephen King adaptations. Another thing that pops up is relationships. Now, I'm not talking about like romantic relationships. No, I'm talking about like other kinds of relationships as well, such as parent child, sibling, friends, and these are seen in many adaptations, such as like I said, Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption. Those are really famous Stephen King adaptations that offer strong relationships between its characters, showing that no matter what they go through, that they always manage to stick together and be kind to one another. And I think this is one of the better things that pops up in his adaptations. And another thing that pops up is, of course, the lack of explanation. The unexplained psychic, like I said, the lack of explanation for why supernatural things there or how it works. This usually pops up in really most, if not all, of his adaptations, which is, I guess, sort of reflective on life, because usually life doesn't really give you a reason or an explanation as to why something is the way it is. You just have to go along with it. But the lack of explanation can certainly get irritating. Another thing that pops up is life loss of innocence. This is a really popular thing in movies such as It. There's also The Shining. You also have, in a way, Stand By Me as well, because they see the dead body. The loss of innocence, especially child innocence, is usually seen in many of his adaptations, and that's just usually a part of like the traumatic experience is that those characters are going through in that particular situation. But it's really a thing that pops up with a lot of Stephen King stories. I think it's just worth mentioning. Another thing that pops up, making a stand against evil. Now again, this usually pops up in his more horror adaptations, such as The Shining. Yeah, I say The Shining is a stand against evil. Also, It. Not really Carrie so much. Cujo though, definitely. Really about like the good of people of coming together and like confronting the evil head on, which is usually a typical thing in a lot of stories, but it's also become a big part of the Stephen King adaptations as well. So those are really those big, small sort of ideas, cliches, themes that pop up in Stephen King adaptations. And even though they sound like stuff that are usually just a little bit more general, when it comes to Stephen King adaptations, they do sort of take their own individual like take with those kinds of stories as well. And which is why, in that way, Stephen King adaptations should be considered their own entire genre, not just a subgenre. So, with that in mind, watch some Stephen King adaptations. Pet Cemetery. Hell, watch the miniseries of it if you want to. Just look out for these things while you're watching them. You get to see that everything is connected. Like, comment, subscribe, share. See you next time.